Your heart is for me. Your ear is listening. I'm safe in your love. Your army of angels watch over me. You're always present. You're always with me. For all of my life, your favor has followed. You're my covering. I have never walked alone. I've never been abandoned. You are my inheritance. You are my strength and shield, and I have confidence. You go before me. You're my deliverer. I know I never walk alone. You're always faithful. You're strong and able. I'm lifting my head, and you I find help. You're my providence, yeah. I've never walked alone. I've never been abandoned. You are my inheritance. You are my strength and shield, and I have confidence. You go before me. You're my deliverer. I know I never walk alone. Yeah. You're so kind, Father. Yeah. Every hour, every minute, you have always been there. You are faithful, and you always will be. In every triumph, every failure, you are loyal to me. You are faithful, and you always will be. Every hour, every minute, you have always been there. You are faithful, and you always will be. In every triumph, every failure, you are loyal to me. You are faithful, and you always will be. You are faithful, and you always will be. I have never walked alone. I've never been abandoned. You are my inheritance. You are my strength and shield, and I have confidence. You go before me. You're my deliverer. I know I never walk alone. I've never been abandoned. You are my inheritance. You are my strength and shield, and I have confidence. You go before me. You're my deliverer.
Well, Hannah and Ben, it's so good to have you on. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks,
Thank
Jimmy.
you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this song. It's always like, it's kind of like Christmas when we start hearing new Hillsong worship songs and they start coming in, and the team gets really excited, and we get to listen through all the new music that you guys have been working on. But man, this song particularly stood out to me early on. We were listening to even just, as you guys were creating, demos and trying to get, song parts together. This was one that our team really came around as, man, it's just like really special. I love what the song says, feels very timely. But Hannah, I'll start with you. Talk a little bit about how the song got started and what was the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, well, to be honest, the way this song started was, this is maybe too much information, but I was in the car. I had my two little kids in the back, and we were listening to some worship music. And there's this moment at the end of a song that Jen Johnson from Bethel leads, and she's just singing out freely. And then towards the end of it, I was kind of, to be honest, not paying too much attention. And then I hear her sing this line, "I have never walked alone." And I could have swerved over to the side of the road because this has never happened to me before, but it was almost as if like she sang that line and I could hear almost like a song around just that one line that she said. And so I kind of safely pulled over to the side of the road and scrambled for my voice memo app and like sung in a little line, I've never walked alone. And then I kind of heard this idea, like I've never been abandoned. And it's interesting because, the time that this happened, we were in, like many people across the planet really, like a time of such great restriction. And, there were lots of phrases floating around like social distancing, and people, I think across the planet, loneliness has been something that so many of us struggle with at times anyway, but even more so during the last, year or two. And so, yeah, it just felt like a really amazing moment. I can't really explain it, but a little while after that, I was trying to figure out the best way forward with the song. And I reached out to Ben. I sent him my rough little demo that I made of what I thought it could be. And then that was kind of where things started to take off a little bit.
Wow. And Ben, it feels like, as Hannah was saying, just, man, what a timely song at a time where we've maybe never felt so alone, depending on our situation, just to be reminded of God's presence. I think of Jesus' words, "I'll never leave you nor forsake you." It's such a powerful statement to come around as a people and as a church, especially during the season that we're in.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that was the thing for me, like hearing that voice note. Firstly, anytime Hannah messages me and says, "I've got an idea," like I'm always like excited because they're always good. But I remember just opening up that voice note and, listening through, and there's this beautiful verse that was sitting there with that original idea, and I was listening to that. It was cool. And then it hit that chorus and that theme started to just like, as she started to sing those words, I'll never walk alone, and I've never been abandoned. Just like you're saying, I was like, man, this feels like it's just cutting right through the season that we're in. And so, I sat down with it, sent back some ideas to Hannah, and really like we got a lot of the song very quickly, like probably in a couple of days, and a lot of the lyrics. And then, like a lot of good songs, then it's months of sort of crafting and going back and forward and trying to make sure that everything locks in. I think because we felt like we had landed on something that felt like it was something our church needed to be singing, and that would minister like right into the time that we found ourselves in. So thank God for that. Thank God for that Hannah pulled over and recorded that voice note.
Absolutely. And Hannah, there's so many parts of the song I love, but when it gets to that bridge, man, that's where I feel like it just really takes off. It's just this bold declaration of just God's faithfulness, His presence. And man, it's just the way that it builds through that is so powerful.
Yeah, it's been really special. I think we've been talking about it a little bit amongst ourselves, but it's like, I hope that when people start to hear this song and they get a chance to sing it in their churches and sing it with their congregation, that it would maybe be like that kind of anthemic reminder for people. I especially love like how it says, every hour, every minute, you've always been there, like making it specific. I think it's it's nice to talk about the faithfulness of God broadly, but to bring it down to, like, we also serve a faithful and personal God. He's close to us, and he's faithful to us in the everyday moments and even the minute by minute, second by second. And so I'm really hoping that it will be some kind of like, I don't know, like anthemic reminder for us as we sing this song together, that it's like, hey, just remember that the God who we worship, he's faithful and he's holy, and he's also with us in this moment, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's so true that the faithfulness of God is enduring. And, you know, I think when we were trying to carve out the song, as soon as we had that idea of, you know, never walk alone, the scripture of Deuteronomy 31 came to mind, where, you know, the people of God they've been delivered through captivity, through the seas, through to the promise of God, but they find themselves sort of wandering around in this wilderness. And it's the time, if you like, between where God has led them through into freedom, but they're still waiting on the promise of God. And so in Deuteronomy 31, it's Moses summons Joshua in front of all the people of God, and it's where he says, you know, he will never leave you, he will never forsake you, do not be discouraged. And, you know, I feel like that the words of Moses to Joshua then could very much be words to us right now, that we'd remind ourselves that even in a time where sometimes it feels a little bit like we're still waiting to see the promise of God come to fruition, it feels like a season of waiting, that the words of Moses would ring true in our ears, that God's never left us, he's never forsaken us, that we need to take courage, we need to be strong, and we need to remember the faithfulness of God.
Wow, man, what a great thought. Hannah and Ben, thank you guys so much for sharing the song with us, talking about it. We appreciate the time.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
so much, Jimmy.
I am